Fiscal Court regular meeting of June 16th, 2022 to order per KRS 61826. This is a video teleconference meeting of the Franklin County Fiscal Court, and it is actually a hybrid type meeting. Right, Amber? Okay.
With that, I'd like to start our meeting today with Marion Taylor, the pastor from the South Frankfort Presbyterian Church, who is here in person, and we welcome her to lead us in prayer through these troubled times that we are doing. Thank you and welcome. We're so pleased to have you here.
Well,
and it's so
thank you.
great to see a pastor in person.
It's a delight,
Yes.
actually, and coincidentally, just today, I was getting ready to order one of those owls for the church.
Yep.
So it's.
Would you like this one? You can take it with you if you want.
It is an owl.
So I'm just fascinated to see that I don't have to stand anywhere in particular. It's just going to pick me up
It
right
will do
here.
that. It will
I
do that.
love it. That's exactly why we're going to order one, so that we can have some hybrid meetings at the church as well. So thank you for showing me how it works, and thank you for the privilege of having just a moment. It's always good, I think, to just pause and remember that we are in a very large cosmos in which we are not in charge. And so it's good to just pause for a moment and consider God. So if you would, just join me for a moment. Gracious God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this day and for the meaningful vocation of public service. Inspired by your vision for human community, may we strive always to improve in kindness, in fairness, in generosity, and in care for the most vulnerable among us. Help us all to bridge and reconcile conflicts among races and social classes, philosophies, genders, competing interests, so that this county becomes known far and wide as a place of peace and goodness, that peace might spread throughout your creation. In all these ways, may we honor you in all that we do, in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Very nice prayer. Appreciate your kind words. And on behalf of the Fiscal Court, and the members here and our staff, we also send prayers to the JW, your family at this time. God bless. Prayers to your family. You're welcome. With that being said, now we have a special person that's going to lead us in prayer. The pledge. Starts with the P. The pledge. And I particularly like this young person's name. His name is Houston. And so, if you would please stand for the pledge. Houston will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Houston. Mr. Hancock, I guess that would be a good prelude right into you. Am I first up? Yes. No, I think the Humane Society is first up. But I don't see anybody from the Humane Society here. Are they here?
Mr. Marcus is joining us via teleconference, Judge.
Okay. Jeff, go ahead. You go ahead. We'll get him on there in a second. Go ahead.
Guys, thank you all for being here today. It's good to be back in person, and I guess someone promised a bunch of people some Hoggy's ice cream because you've got a full crowd of people here, and I'm sure they're here for the ice cream.
Yeah.
Or to hear you speak, Jeff.
I don't know about that. I don't know that I have anything that interesting to say. I want to go over a couple of things because I think keeping you all educated on what's going on with the elections now that we've taken over all the cost of it, and then we're reimbursing the county. I think it's just good for y'all to know where your money's being spent at, what we're doing, what our plans are. So if you'll look at what I've done and what I broke down for you, the primary election for 2022 had a grand total of $82,599. What that is, that's breakdown from the mailing, the office supplies, the media that we had to use. The county treasurer payback that we had was all the election workers and all the people that had to work out in the polls. The $31,000 to HARP Election Services is our election ballots. It's all the equipment that we have to use, all the setting of the equipment that we have to use. Hewlett Printing was the printing for any of the extra signs that we had to put out at all the locations, so everyone knew where to go if they were confused on where they were supposed to be at. The state treasurer, that's actual mailing for what we paid to mail all the ballots out. And then the state journal is how we advertise, what we paid on advertising. We've got a $250,000 grand line item for elections. If you'll drop down the increases that I'm expecting, $1,000 in postage, a 10,000 worker for the extra precincts that we're gonna add, and the 10,000 in increased advertising. We're expecting to spend budgeting approximately $133,750 for the general, giving a grand total of $216,309 for the overall election cycle. The big things that we're adding a location at Kentucky State University. We're gonna add a location, and we're still in talks with them, at the Senior Center. The Senior Center will also have an early voting mechanism with it. So we will have one on the east side, the west side, and in downtown. You will have one at the Capital City Christian Church will be your east side. Your downtown location will still be the Yes Arts building or the old Frankfurt Plant Board building. And then the west side will be out by the hospital, which is the Senior Center. Now, why we picked the Senior Center is for several different reasons. First of all, it's right in the heart of all of the retirement community. You've got Ashwood, you've got Beehive, you've got all of the retirement community right there. You've also got all your hospital, which is your second biggest employer. You got Walmart there. We just feel like it's a great west side location. It has ADA parking. It has what we need to have a successful election. We will have 10 total election sites on election day, actually 12 total election sites on election day. Every one of them you will be able to vote. Anybody will be able to vote at any of them. So there will not be any more question, where do you go vote? Go to your favorite school. It's gonna be that simple. We are gonna send out all this information via postcard as well. And we feel like that overall, we were still 5th in the state in overall voter turnout for the primary. We feel like that's a pretty good run. I expect us to be number 1 in the state in the general election. So we're gonna give a lot of options. We need to make sure everybody knows that early voting is absolutely not only acceptable, but a great way to vote. It's a way to stay out of lines. The longest line that we had for the primary was about a 45-minute line down at the old Frankfurt Plant Board. Reason that line came about is because one of the systems went down. When a system goes down, regardless how good you are, you can't keep the line flowing as well as you could as if all the systems were up and in place. This still gives us a total favorable budget of over $34,000 still to use if needed. So we are open ears on anything that the court would want to do toward elections. Does anybody have any questions on the primary and the overcap of what we've done so far? Yes, ma'am.
Are the early voting dates going to be the same, like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday?
Yes, ma'am. They will always be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They will be no less than 8 hours a day. What you have is 10, 10, and 8 here in Franklin County. I assume you'll have a setup that's very similar to that.
10 hours, are you talking about?
10 hours Thursday, 10 hours Friday, 8 hours on Saturday.
Okay.
We have our best turnouts for early voting on Friday. We need to get Thursday and we need to get Saturdays up.
That was Friday the 13th.
It was Friday the 13th, you're correct.
Jeff, what was our percentage turnout on the primary?
The total percentage overall was 35%.
Of the eligible voters?
Yeah,
And 5th in the
Oh,
state.
and that was 5th in the state?
yeah. You had 19 overall in the state of Kentucky, guys.
As an average.
Yeah.
It's abysmal.
Who beat us? I wanna know that, 'cause I wanna be beat.
The State Board of Elections, if you haven't been reading, has had their hands full with some, they can't get me everything I need right now. I've been asking since the day after the after the primary election. As soon as I get all those numbers, I'll share those with you, because I think it's important for us to know, what's out there. He did tell me we're in the top 5, and he couldn't tell me anymore. he had more to do than, yes, sir.
Have you thought about doing any drive-throughs?
The drive-throughs are a little bit of a complication, especially in November. You can have snow. We don't have some of the facilities that one particular location that's here in central Kentucky is doing. We don't have a garage that we can drive through. They're using a garage. And if we had a garage that was capable of it, we would do that, but they're not offering 3 locations either.
Yeah, I was thinking
So-
like health department, you know, where they do shots and stuff.
Right.
Just
Well,
an
and
option.
that is a good option, that is a good thought, we really haven't budgeted in putting that in, but, I mean, if
Okay.
that's something you all wanna think about, we can look at it. But logistically, it can be tough to do drive-throughs.
Okay, thank you.
Judy just commented on the video that you all are welcome to use it.
Oh, thanks, Judy.
Mr. Clark, you did say that the Capital City Activity Center is gonna handle early voting duties as well, so I'll give 3 early voting locations.
Yes,
right?
ma'am, and you'll have 12 on election day, even your rural sites will be, your rural sites will be able to vote anybody as well. We're just gonna make everybody be able to vote
So you can
anywhere.
go anywhere.
Yeah, if you wanna drive out to Ball Knob and you live in South Frankfurt, happy, we're gonna make it available to you.
Is that because, you don't, it's the general election?
It's not, guys. We had to go through the primary and make sure we could do a print-on-demand process for this. The print-on-demand ballots are coming directly out of the Hart print-on-demand system. They're very safe, they're very secure, but we have spent all of our lifetimes in this room doing hard copy printed ballots and ripping them off one at a time. Once we found out that we could utilize this system during the early voting, we went over, and if you'll look down, there's a $14,000 election equipment changeover, upgrade election equipment. We're upgrading 10 of our pieces of equipment to be able to handle this so we can have them out in all the locations. So that's one of the steps we had to take. We had to make them print on demand versus the handicap so we could get them out in every location and have enough equipment to cover our election all over Franklin County. So now we have plenty of print on demands. We can check the person in. It's actually more secure than it's ever been. As you're checking them in, it's gonna go E101. You know that the ballot code that you're typing in is E101. You type the E101, it pulls up, it prints. You get the second chance before you hand them the ballot and before they sign for it. It's one of the most secure systems. Kentucky really does a nice job.
Jeff, question.
Yes.
When it says upgrade election equipment, this is obviously brand new equipment. Is there anything in place, like we pay a fee every month or every year to keep software updated from election to election?
This is a different upgrade. That upgrade of election equipment that we paid the $14,000, they had to actually take equipment off
Okay,
and put equipment onto it. So this is some hard copy equipment
okay,
that they had to actually change the fiscal makeup of the equipment. And it's gotta be sent back to Texas to Hart InterCivic to have that done.
but from this point forward, is there any kind of,
The only one that I see coming foreseeable future, and I've got it down here, if you'll look at election equipment upgrade, I put 25,000 in there. If they do something for the e-poll books, and they upgrade those, because those were bought by the state, and they're being maintained by the state right now. Those e-poll books could be our next purchase that we have to make. I will come to you all beforehand.
Are
I
they
put that,
connected to the internet, those e-polls?
they are not. They go back up to the site to make sure that you can't go and vote twice in town, but it is not, goes to the internet. It goes back into the voter election system and comes back down to each of the e-poll books, so you can't go from location to location to location to vote.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Jeff, have you covered it all?
I've covered all the elections, the second page, the storage fees that I've been telling you all about. So far, year to date, I've collected $88,128 in storage fees. They start coming to you on July the 1st. On July the 1st, I went ahead and projected what, this is not far off at all. I projected your 2022, because you all use a different year than I use. You all use the fiscal year, I use a calendar year. Your projected 22-23 storage fees will be $176,256. But before that even comes to full fruition, you will owe $125,000 for our record preservation. That will take us all the way back to every single document we have in the clerk's office will be electronically and digitally recorded.
Is this through the monies that, that come to us, but you tell us how to spend it, basically?
Yes.
And we have to agree to that?
Yes. The first year, it's gonna look as a shortfall, but really it's not because you're on the fiscal year. You're still gonna get the 88,000 year to date that I've already collected back in excess fees. I mean, that's the glory of it. You're still getting it. You're just, at this point, you're only gonna collect from July 1st through December the 31st before you owe the bill for the 125 on the record preservation, because that becomes your all's bill at that point. This is more an FYI.
From this point forward, we won't have that bill. They're inputting them differently, I'm assuming?
From this point forward, they will always be your bill, but you will always have enough financial backing there to pay them.
Okay.
It's a set aside amount of money that cannot be spent or dedicated to do anything but record preservation.
It can be used for record preservation in other departments though as well, right?
Yes. And that's something that we'll have to all come back and talk
Yeah.
about, see what's best fit.
Are they
Your
pres-
county clerk's office will be 100% backdated, but I don't wanna stop there. I also wanna make sure our software and our hardware is up where it's usable for the citizens here in Franklin County. Yes, ma'am.
Is the storage in Frankfurt?
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
Yes, ma'am.
sounds good.
Any other questions on that?
Are you gonna do the old fiscal court order books?
We can. I haven't done them at this point, but that absolutely can be put on the docket for the 23. I mean, once we get them preserved, once we get them put there, once we have them digitally recorded, that money is there to make sure, and we, in Franklin County, we're so far ahead of the curve, because I've been doing it all along. I've been doing record preservation since I've got here. So when we finish this last 125,000, every book, all the way back into the marriage books from the original, from original settlements and everything, every bit of it will be electronic.
1792?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
Okay, doke. Any other questions?
Are you gonna maintain the paper records?
I will maintain everything that is legally required by us to maintain. And that's part of what you all have got to have to realize, that some of that money, I mean, we're gonna need new roller shelves. As long as I'm still printing deeds and putting them on, we're still gonna need, I mean, there's just things that are gonna have to be, the books, the paper, all that stuff will come out of that fee. But from what we found so far, you're gonna have plenty of money in that storage fee to also do some codifications, do the old court records. We're gonna be able to get everything all the way back.
The reason I ask is Library and Archives several years ago documented court records from every county in the state.
Yep.
And they took these beautiful leather bound books with gold trim and just threw them in the dumpsters.
Yeah, we're not gonna allow them to do that. We're hoping all of our books, we've got some historical documents up there that are not even open to the public at this point because they're just fragile. They're not, they shouldn't be thrown around and opened up, and, we'll preserve those. We'll preserve those hard copies, cause that's the history that we can't recreate.
We've got some in our
I
basement.
have a few of those
Yeah.
dumpster divers.
All right. Jeff, keep going.
Last one, this is the 5%. I also wanna tell you that if we were asked, right, that's exactly a 5% increase from where we're at. We haven't used we're not up to that point at this point. But this also will include any of our part-time labor needed. I don't know if you know this, but we have 2 clerks in our office that are expecting. So I'm gonna be about 15 weeks without employees, and we're gonna have to hire part-time people. I've got that figured in, that number of the increase, and I've also got any part-time pay that I'll need. When I say part-time pay, we hired Kelly Everman. We've done this for the last 2 election cycles. That will come off of this allotted amount as well.
Okay, any other questions on that? All right, Mr. Clerk, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you for your information. Tommy Russell, I'm asking Tommy to come in. I think Sam is on there, but I need Tommy. I want Tommy to say something because you just walk outside and you know it is extremely hot, and we are going to be fortunate this weekend to get a little bit of cooling off by the mid next week. supposed to be in the hundreds, if not right at 100 degrees. And we have a lot of people that don't have air conditioning, and we also have an alert that I guess you will talk about from the plant board that there could be some situations. And so, Tommy, if you talk about cooling stations and actually what the plant board is talking about too.
So, looking around this room, nobody's fat like me, that y'all don't understand what air conditioning means to a fat guy right now, so.
I got a pretty good.
And an old guy, let me say that. So, we do have, I do have right now two, facilities that are open during the daytime for cooling. Thornhill Learning Center and then the Salvation Army, both of them are on the transit route. So should we encounter anybody or y'all hear of anybody that needs a cooling center to go to, both those options are available. I've talked to Mark Kopp at Franklin County, and should we get into different circumstances, the schools, a couple of the schools are gonna be available. We had two of them ironed out, but air conditioning went out on one, and now we're looking, I think, at Bridgeport maybe was gonna be the next one up and running. Temps this week have been a little bit cooler than what I'm looking at for next week. You wouldn't think a couple of degrees would make a difference, but it's gonna make a huge difference depending on the humidity and the wind direction. So I'm sure we'll be on a west-southwest wind and the humidity's going up. Anytime that the heat indices will be above 100, we'll be under a heat advisory. Heat warnings don't take place until, excessive heat warnings don't take place until we get above 110 on the heat indices. So right now, we'll take this cool weather this weekend, try to remember it for next week. And I did look at the rest of the month, and some of the numbers are still in the 90s all month this week. I mean, for the rest of this month. We'll see what happens. It's beginning, there's a movie one time, maybe A Long Hot Summer. I don't remember what it was, made back in the 50s or something like that. I don't know that I saw it, but I remember the title someplace. So anyway, that's where we're starting. Yes, ma'am?
What are the hours for the cooling centers?
There'll be,
You mentioned the locations.
Daytime hours, 9 to 4 or 5, whatever they stay open. I know that during the heat of the day is probably from 4 until 6. But you know, right now we'll take what they'll offer us, and that's what they've done. If we, like I said,
9 to 4, right?
ma'am? Yes, ma'am.
When you say we'll take what they offer us, that's 9 to 4.
Yes, ma'am. I think they'll stay to 4:30. I probably could ask for 5 o'clock or go down there and man that, you know, but with my staff if we have to. So,
Tommy, would you be so kind to send that to Andrew, that information, so he can post that? Andrew, make sure that gets posted on our webpage.
it's on the Ready Frankfurt app now.
Yeah, it's still on our, it's good,
Many spots that we can get it.
I confirmed it this afternoon with one of my guys. He said it's down in the layers, but he said he would make the announcement on the front of the Ready Frankfurt app so people can go look for it and see. Transit knows that that's on those two sites are on a transit route, which helps anybody that doesn't have a car or a vehicle or needs to get there. Yes, sir.
The State Journal used to have a thing in the weather section that gave the history of the weather. 1938, I think it was over 100 degrees, 13 days in a row. And it was like 108, 113, 114. We don't want that here. So
Yeah, now Judge and I were 3 and 4 years old then, so.
well, I was gonna say, Judge might be able to remember that.
In 39, the river.
Lambert,
froze
do you
over.
remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. My mother-in-law did, and she said that everybody's tobacco dried up except for her dad's.
Yeah, I
He
can't
was
imagine,
packing
you
it,
know,
packing water from the river.
that many days at 100 degrees, of course, it's a different time.
And that's in
back then,
June.
Everybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't used to all the comforts, the creature comforts back then, so.
Okay, anybody have questions for Tommy? Let's make sure everybody on your Facebook pages, your personal Facebook pages, if you would post that, once Tommy, we get that on our website. Let's make sure we all get that out to people, because that's gonna be tough next week.
Yeah, people and animals, everybody needs it. It's the same message we send out all the time, people, animals and livestock. Like I say, that next week appears to be a little bit warmer, and I saw the rest of the month still staying in the 90s. So I'm sure your guys probably would appreciate this weekend if they were
No,
working out.
yeah. We're starting early and quitting early.
Yeah.
Okay, Tommy, thank you. Speaking of animals, we're gonna go on to San Marcos. That's a great
What a good segue, yeah.
segue, right? Sam, are you on? Thanks, Tommy.
Yes, sir.
San Marcos. My goodness, have we lost him already? Andrew, can you get Sam? Marcus?
It says that he's with us, Judge. I don't know if he stepped away from his computer, but he is.
Hey, I'm here.
Okay. All right, and,
Can you hear me?
And Susan Lawrenson? Susan Lawrenson, are you on as well?
Yes, yeah, hang on, let me, hopefully you
Yeah.
can hear me. I
Yes, I'm
unmuted.
here.
I'm just gonna pull up my screen though. Okay, hi.
Okay. All right, so you talk to us, Sam, and Susan has some questions, and we'll see what get worked out for you.
Okay, great.
Okay, Susan,
Me
you
first?
yes, Susan, you asked for
Okay.
this to be on the agenda to figure out how we pay, to talk about payment of the monies to the Humane Society.
Yes, the Humane Society is trying to figure out the timing of the contributions from the local jurisdictions, the city and the county. I reached out to the city to see what their plan might be. My recommendation is that we do installments and that we also have some sort of agreement about what the contributions are intended for and their intended use. And I have had a conversation with the county attorney about drafting language for such an agreement. And I think the city was going to be following the same path as well. So that's what I'm looking for, is maybe some guiding language that has the expectation of a facility and completion within a certain amount of time, and that the contribution is for that public purpose.
And your thoughts, and Rick Sparks, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there should be an agreement that makes sense. And I think we're okay with the installments. If we could get them though in installments that would end by the end of the year, because we're going through $500,000 or $600,000 a month in invoices now under construction. We don't want to be in a position where we're starting to feel like we're getting too low on funds, and if something happens that that we'd have to do something immediately. So if you want to do installments in July and October and December or whatever, I think we'd be fine with that, but I think we'd like to have it all but before the end of the year.
Mr. Sparks?
I'll assist in drafting whatever you want to, Judge, whatever the court desires. The problem I'm hearing though is to determine the circumstances under which the draw would be taken, especially with Ms. Lawrence's statement about ensuring that the property, or it goes to the property in question. Again, you have to decide what you want to do, and then we can draft whatever you decide to do. If it's a periodic draw, much like a housing draw, et cetera, that's no problem. If you want it based on certain contingencies of development, that's no problem. Sam's gonna get mad at me when I say this. The most optimal way to do it is when the thing gets built, say it's built, and then here you owe a bill, because that eliminates those contingencies. But there'd have to be some provision in about how to measure what things you want measured before the draw is completed.
So Rick, let me help this moment with this question. Could the Humane Society submit a bill saying that, and I'm just saying 200, we do it in 4 segments. Each segment's 250,000. This 250,000 would be used for X, Y, and Z in payments for X, Y, and Z, whatever these 4 items or whatever. is that sufficient enough? Is that okay with you, Sam? And would that meet the standards, I guess, for Susan? So I throw that out to all three of you, thinking in that respect.
I mean, personally, I think it's going to be hard for you to specify what each payment is going toward, unless you want to get into the weeds of, what are we building this month or the month that you're going to make the payment and what's happening. I mean, I don't know if you can see behind me, but if you can see behind me is a picture today of what's there right now. We've got all the concrete walls are just about up, the exterior walls. Working the controversial access road has been fully paved. There's a substantial amount of plumbing, interior plumbing that's been done. And most of that plumbing will probably be completed in a couple of weeks. The roof panels are being delivered and the structural steel is going to be in place. The roof panels should be in place by early to mid-July. So, I mean, you're getting a facility. We're under contract. We have an obligation to complete the facility with the contractor. I mean, if you want to say it's going toward the building, I mean, and facility, we don't have any problem with that. We might have a little more of an argument about that with the city, quite honestly, because right now every drop that they've committed to us is going to infrastructure. So unless that changes, but as far as you all are concerned, we're dedicating all your funds to the facility, certainly, and that language can happily be incorporated into some form of document.
We could certainly draft that accordingly, Sam. I just, from the court's end, I need to know what that language would be to put in there, what the mile markers are.
Squire Muller.
Hey, Sam, thanks for being on with us. So what's your completion date?
End of next March. Now, I don't know if that's changed any because, weather had hampered them some. So they may have lost some of the some time, but as of right now, it's still scheduled for by the end of next March.
So Rick, can we legally pay them in full in December if the build is not fully completed until the end of March?
It depends on how you're structuring that. If you're doing it in the form of a grant, which Susan or Miss Lawrence and I discussed that we need some mile markers, that's probably a little inappropriate because then it's all done. I think you definitely have to have a mile marker of some point to pay it every, 100 or the money divided by 10 and then mark those places down as opposed to prepay. And I think that's your question. Can you prepay for services that have not been done?
Right. So we could do like end of masonry, end of carpentry, end of steel work, things like that.
Electric, HVAC.
Right. Mile
I
marks.
just need those mile markers to record. I don't know what those mile markers, what is the desire of the body as to those items.
So, I mean, if you want us to send you the paid invoices, we can send you paid invoices. I mean, if that's what you need.
I don't think we're doubting what you're doing. We just have to do it legally through the fiscal court. So we just need to come up with a structure.
Right.
I mean,
And let me just also comment, if I may, that fiscal court is under a special rule. Well, all fiscal courts, all counties are a special rule in the fourth year of a term and the 65-35 rule. So basically, we're really constrained to $650,000 max to December.
Yes.
And then the remainder after that. So, but I thought it seemed like pretty straightforward question to me that you would have a contract and you'd have a percentage of completion and we would be a partner in that percentage of completion. There'd be three partners, the city, the county, and the Humane Society. And as that percentage of completion, that's the mile marker that would trigger a draw. And that would serve as really, I think, fine documentation for, for the the funds that go to the agency.
Well, and that's fine too, and that gets back to, that gets back to where we can send you the pay applications and what we pay, because the pay applications have the percentage of completion of the project. And in fact, you've got a substantial amount that's already been done. So, that should be a consideration for the first draw, I would think, I would hope. And we can submit those to you.
Susan, wouldn't we want the first draw, whatever that is, to be done by June 30th?
No, this is in the new fiscal year.
Okay.
The $1 million is budgeted in full for fiscal year 23 through the capital fund. So, I was just thinking either 500 or, the $500,000 in December when we have tax receipts, or you can do it, in installments, or we're saying of the maybe 250 in July and then 250. Reason I'm pushing for December is that's when we have cash flow for the current year with our tax receipts. Otherwise, we're immediately using reserves. So that's, and then also the 65-35 rule, but that $500,000 by December 31st, and then come January 1, you can decide, another disbursement. It could have just been arbitrary intervals, but I just felt like some specific language and some sort of little memorandum of understanding or whatever the county attorney might suggest would be appropriate. It doesn't, I don't know that it would have consequences if they don't use it for that or what the language might be, but it would just be a good, it would just serve as documentation for a responsible use of the money from fiscal court to the other agency.
Sam, could your contractor give you, as they do monthly updates, or you all have your meetings, this is the percent completion, and twice from July to January, you get a 250,000 per percent or whatever as percent of completion, and then starting January 1st, you can get the rest of it if it is. Are you saying, Susan, we have to say that we can only give all of the money after the whole thing is completed? If it's 100%?
No, what I'm saying is that as far as the cash flow of the contribution to the agency, you can't exceed the 65%. I would recommend exceeding the 65% before December. No matter what the pay app said, if you're 100% complete by December, I still wouldn't recommend paying that full $1 million, simply because, again, of that 65-35 rule, we're trying to apply per project, and that's a pretty significant, project. It's applied by fund, but in this case, it would be, since it's a cash contribution and not being bonded, it's treated a little differently. There's not an exception. You remember I was talking about exceptions. So it's not only bonded money or debt money is treated as an exception.
Let Squire Sebastian speak.
Thank you, Judge. I was just going to ask a question, and I'm not sure from the Humane Society president if there is a cash flow issue. That's kind of what I'm hearing on your side of things. I just want to make sure I'm hearing that right. So if that is the case, perhaps we see invoices maybe at the end of the month and we set up some monthly installment of, the math is not exactly perfect, but like $75,000 each month. That gets close to that $500,000. It's not exact. It's about 450,000 calculated in my head times 6. And that assists if it's a cash flow issue, and that keeps us within the requirements of DLG for the 65-35. Which I had questions about at the end of the court meeting. So I'm just trying to see if there's a way that we can harmonize all this.
Squire, that's exactly, we're on that. we're same page. That's exactly it. And now I've got, that's what you want to do.
I don't know. I'm just pro-offering that because of what I'm hearing from the Humane Society president, but I may be misinterpreting something, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to make sure I understand what the issues are.
Well, if you do it in installments, you still have to have some type of
Which, like I
record
said,
that you've done some work.
right, which, like I said, what we would get is some type of invoice to demonstrate that 75 would go toward advancing the project, and we would have a record from the body for us to demonstrate about how the money was allocated at. They can use it for whatever it is, plumbing, upfitting of XYZ. I don't know what it is. I think we're all trying to get to the same place. We're all on the same train trying to get to the same place.
Yeah,
I'm just offering something rather than a large chunk. Because I'm not sure if it is how it's being presented to us, if it's a cash flow issue. It's not that the court is not going to make good on its obligations. So that's where I'm coming from.
Sam, can you live with $75,000 a month until January 1st?
Well, I think if you're going to do the installments, I mean, I think that's fine. But if you're doing 650 by the end of the year, you're looking at about 110,000 a month. So, I mean, I don't think 75 is, is really.
We're trying to avoid the 650. We're trying to go 500. We're just keeping under the 650 if we
Right.
could. That's what we're trying to do. We got other budgetary issues that we got to deal with as well. So what we're trying, let's just think in terms of 500,000 or close to until January.
Well, I mean, so my question is, if you're going to do it that way, then are you going to do the rest of it in January?
Yeah, that's what I would think. If you had, if you could say, if you got enough completion, wouldn't you think you could? Do you need it? I would say that if in January you're going to be finished in March, you should be 75% complete. Wouldn't you think?
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, the whole thing is we don't want to be waiting till the last month or month or two to completion before we're getting substantial amounts of payments from commitments from you all or the city, where we're going to be at that point, we are going to be low on our funds.
Let's try to somebody make this easy. Rick, give it to us.
Sam, what if we did 500 by the end of December, 250 January 1, and the 250 on completion day?
That's not what he's wanting. That's
Good.
I think
what he was saying. He did.
But I think legally, he's going to want us to hold some till they're completed. Is usually how a contract works.
Well, I think if you look at your resolution, the resolution actually, and I haven't looked at it, I should have, you all can. I know the city's read that the commitment was actually going to be done upon the beginning of construction. So I don't know how your resolution reads, but I don't know why we're having to wait until the end of construction. I mean, this is a $6.5 million project now, and your $1 million is going to be eaten up way before the project's completed. I mean, way before. We've spent $1 million. We're spending $1 million already on infrastructure alone. So, I know you don't want your commitment to go to infrastructure, but we're going to be well above your $1 million here, probably, if we aren't already within the next couple of months. So, I mean, as far as where your money's going, it's going to be way before completion. It'll be
Receipts would be good. Whatever. Rick, do you think what could we draft this as installments of X amount, and we'll decide on what X is in a few minutes? But could we do this in X amounts per month?
Yes, sir. But you hit it right on the nail. You have to decide what the X is.
We can do it.
Okay.
We want to keep it below. We want to keep it no more than 500,000 the change until through December.
I just need to know what the markers are.
If we did that $100,000 a month,
$100,000 a month starting
That puts starting in
in July.
that put us at 600,000. And we'd have-
So we'll give you $100,000 a month starting in July. And,
And then the new court will make
and then the new court can decide to give you the
That's right.
400,000 all at once, or however you all want to work it out.
Okay. That'd be great. I appreciate that.
All right, now, Rick, can we do that? Can you draft that? Is that okay? In other words,
Yeah, I'll get the fine language details down.
What does that mean?
you kind of broke up, Rick. We didn't understand.
I'm sorry. I need to know the fine language when I put it down to speed as opposed to the very comprehensive discussion that the court is engaged in so far today.
Go ahead.
My question is gonna be for the treasurer, just to make sure we maintain the obligation that we have through state law of the 65-35, because this is not the only expenditure that we're gonna have between now and December. So
That
I'm
is
sure she's hearing this, so I'm sorry, go ahead, Counselor.
I said that is exactly correct. Saying the same thing, and I'll be quiet. I'll go shut off. Thank you, ma'am.
So I'm just trying to make sure, given all the obligations that we know we have to do, serve the citizens, as well as this project that we, said that we would contribute to as well, just trying to make sure that we kind of have a path, to make sure we stay within that 65-35, which we are.
Yes, this will do it if we say it's by fund, and this is in the capital fund, and the other major project is a bonded project, which is excluded. And thank you, Sam, for your patience about this, but our resolution did not address this issue. And I have had this conversation lightly for a while now about clarity when the time came. And now that it's budgeted, we're having the conversation. So Squire Moore's offer about the $100,000 a month, that's fine in conjunction with the resolution, probably as it is. If we just, it can be that simple, quite for me, for that
And
direction.
again-
I've been given direction.
And again, I would offer, we'll send you the pay application so you'll have a record, because they do show, they show all the amounts that have been expended to date, and then they also show the percentage of completion to date.
And that's
So
excellent. That's excellent. And that's a
so that way
typical,
you'd have them.
that's been the way we've done other partnerships, is through percentage of completion and that kind of documentation. So that's fine. Fine by me.
All right, Rick, can you handle that? You understand that? Rick Sparks.
Well, I had to turn off. And yes, sir, that's a starting point. I'll get some on it. Thank you.
All right, good deal. Thank you, Sam. Anything else? We're excited about where you are. It's great.
Yeah, I do want to tell you all this could be my last meeting before you all as board president. I rotate off the board at the end of this month. And so I just wanted to, thank you all so much for everything you've done for the Humane Society. And I guess for a few of you, I want to thank you for your service to the community, your public service, for the years of public service that you performed. And certainly wish you well, and I'm sure we'll interact in other ways in the future.
We thank you too, Sam.
For all your hard work, Sam.
Yes, you've as you know, you've been very diligent in your approach. And the community appreciates it very much.
Sam, I have a question about your road.
Yes, sir.
Is it not gonna have curbs and gutters like the rest of the subdivision there?
No, it won't have curbs and gutters.
So, all right, thank you.
All right, anything else for Sam? Okay, thank you, Sam.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is, well, we looked at we have the minutes to look at. Any questions on the minutes? All right, the next item is Judy Mattingly on? Judy Mattingly, are you, oh, hey, Judy. This is a contract providing preventative services with our county employees. This is a yearly contract. And you want to speak about it? I think Betty Jo's probably on to speak about it, or you, Judy.
Of course, I'm happy to. It's just our standard annual contract for health services. We present those in an a la carte kind of menu with each service by price. And by and far, your largest service is the firefighter physicals. And those are only actually done every other year. So this past year in FY22, we actually only performed 3 TB skin tests for you all. But in FY21, we did do 52 firefighter physicals, and we're able to keep that at the same price for you per physical and at $250. And we're happy to continue doing it for FY23. And if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Muller has one.
Thank you, Judge. Judy, thanks for being on. I know last year we changed the number of the contract not to exceed. Do you know about where we're going to hit this year at the end of this contract?
In FY21, those 52 physicals cost $13,000 total. And so it should be about the same. I'm not sure about your number of firefighters right now, though.
Oh, so there was nothing else?
You're asking about the overall.
I'm asking overall, not the physicals, overall.
That is overall correct.
Oh, that's it. Oh, okay.
Yes, like this year, for instance, the 3 TB skin tests, they're only $45.
Okay, thank you.
We don't use those other services.
Okay.
Any other questions for Judy? Thank you, Judy. Thank you so much. Thanks for all that you do.
Definitely. Thank you all as well. Have a good meeting.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is authorization to approve a resolution requesting that the Franklin County Planning Commission conduct a hearing to amend the Franklin County Code of Ordinances to allow spirit warehousing in the rural residential area, agricultural zoning district. This is an item that Mr. Sparks, you and Charlie Jones have talked about, and I'd like for you, Mr. Sparks, to say why you're recommending that this be the process for this resolution, for this.
Thank you, Judge. Let me call one. It's not my idea, and I don't want to be scandalized more with some of the other emails that I've gotten today. This is simply the requirement as opposed to section 100.213 to amend your code of ordinances if you choose to do so. I wanted to be clear to everyone that the resolution before the court, and I'll let Mr. Jones speak in a minute, is to present the matter for planning and zoning to consider amending your text ordinance. It is not a resolution stating that they're going to do so. It is not an authorization indicating to anybody that the court is going to agree to the thing in question. It simply proceeds the matter further because Mr. Jones wanted to ensure that the statutory framework was complied with, and that is the way to do so. If the court declines to do it as a proposal without any public hearing at this point, then the matter from fiscal court is resolved. Then the other aspects of subsection 3 of that statute kicks in. If the court is inclined to ask planning and zoning to consider it, at that point, that's when the public hearing is held. Testimony from all of us or whoever chooses to appear before planning and zoning would be taken in, and they will make a decision to bring it back to court, which at that point is the point where fiscal court takes an action. But I want to be clear to everyone who's had concerns about it. And I understand the concerns, and I understand that they understand the concerns in full. This is not a resolution to approve anything other than just Mr. Jones proceeding with the matter on to planning and zoning. So that's why it's not for a public.
Okay,
I'm confused.
all right. The, Squire Tracy, do you have a question for Rick?
I do. Mr. Sparks, what would separate this text amendment request compared to the two other ones that went in front of the planning commission and was presented to them by staff? It didn't come to the body beforehand to ask or however you would want to look at it. That was taken straight from staff to the planning commission on two separate occasions. What separates this one from those two?
It's part of a series of opinions from the Office of the Attorney General that refers to must be voted on by the legislative body or fiscal court, may be originated in the planning commission or the unit or any fiscal court body. And Mr. Jones indicated his concern that that was presented by a body, albeit different. And frankly, he just said he wanted to do it right. And I said, well, this is what the statute says you have to do. So here we are.
So let me follow up on that. So do those two actions have to be voided and have to start over since they didn't comply?
No, ma'am, I don't think so.
Why? Why would they not if the process wasn't followed?
You're assuming the process is not followed. My whole point is Charlie Jones is asking the court to follow that. Although it was initiated by planning staff here through the court, it was presented on for consideration. If it does have to be voided out, then I'm sure somebody will litigate that accordingly.
What voided out?
What Sparks indicated if it need to be voided out.
The other two meetings that.
It'll stand unless somebody challenges it.
The two meetings of the planning commission have to be voided out?
It wasn't an issue.
I'm acting because the court didn't initiate those. And we're being told now that the court has to initiate, or that's what it sounds like. I'm just trying to, I'm following up on what you said.
That's what Mr. Jones is asking to proceed in that fashion. Yes, ma'am.
Squire Blackburn?
Yeah, so the update committee of the planning commission is 6 members. They've met on this particular text amendment twice.
That was opinion error because of the way the statute reads that it must go through planning and zoning.
Correct. And they even allowed some public input.
That was unfortunate.
Well, I'm just trying to state what's already happened. Then there was an issue of legality, and that's where we're at right now, correct?
That is correct.
So in my mind, I believe that the text amendment should go back to the update committee for their recommendation to be given to the full commission.
Yeah.
And then they can have their public hearing on it and follow the process the way that it was designed.
No contradiction on that. That is actually the whole point of doing it in a formal, legitimate, on the record process, to do that in that fashion. The way it goes back to planning and zoning or a committee is it has to be one of two ways. And the way that Mr. Jones is asking, and I don't know why Mr. Jones is getting paid for it, he can speak to it, but that's what he is asking the court to do, was to take it back. If you believe it should be amended, again, not at this point taking any issues on it, to get it back to planning and zoning to have an evaluation. That is correct, sir.
Well, okay, so what I'm looking at with this resolution in front of me, it says recommended fiscal court, the proposed amendment shall be referred to the planning commission. If that's exactly the way that it's going to go, I would prefer that it go back to the committee that oversees amendments, and then their recommendation go to the full commission.
And that I can't speak to how planning and zoning does their internal protocol. It just, the statute refers to planning and zoning.
I think we need to bring Mr. Jones on. He is, I think he's in here. Is he in here, Mr. Jones?
But I would support this, and I realize Charlie's going to speak. Again, don't turn something that is a preliminary step to get it to something into something more of a formal step. because there's a lot of people here, me and otherwise included, who are requesting to be addressed at a later date when the matter is properly before them in full, if it goes that far.
What about the council, the commission's council?
I don't know where he stands on this. What do you mean? I didn't understand the question. I'm sorry.
So if it's a question of legality, I know he was going to look into it. But I was just wondering what his recommendation would be, since he's the counsel for the planning commission.
You'd have to ask him. I know what the statute says. I think he would, well, I don't want to make assumptions for Mr. Logan. He's a good man, so, but I know that's what it said.
Rick, please stay on. Mr. Jones, would you address the court on this proposal? Would you come up to the podium? I'd probably hear you better. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Judge, I certainly have no objection to addressing you all, but my concern is that it was told to everyone that no one would be able to speak to the matter. So I would hate to talk and then not be allowed.
All right,
So I don't.
you can sit down, Ben.
Thank you.
You're the one presenting it to us.
But I don't want to cause an issue.
This is considered to where people will have a say.
It's whatever.
Why are you requesting this? Let me ask you that question, and please answer that.
Let me see if I can say something that won't arouse a problem. Or controversy, I know. As Squire Sebastian pointed out, text amendments have come before the Planning and Zoning Commission either through staff or most typically through an applicant. And I've filed several in the past over the years. And that's the way it's always been done. I researched this otherwise, and there are 8 counties I looked at. 4 of their governing documents for the planning and zoning said it can come through an applicant. 4 of them said no, it has to come through planning and zoning or city commission or some governmental body. Obviously, this one particular one, I filed it on behalf of my client, so it came up that way. And that's the way it's done in Franklin County since the 25 years I've practiced before planning and zoning. It was brought to my attention through counsel that appeared at the subcommittee meeting that they didn't think we could do that. My reading of it, I thought we could, but looking at it another way, I think he had a very valid argument and had a attorney general opinion to back him up. So it's my understanding that Mr. Logan and Mr. Hewitt, and I think the chairman of the planning commission discussed it and said, yep, maybe we've not been doing it right. And so that's why I said, well, let's do this the right way. And that's why I requested this matter to come through fiscal court, just asking you all to ask planning and zoning to take this under consideration. To your point, Squire Blackburn, our planning and zoning is not legally required, but our planning and zoning sends things to a subcommittee to hash it out and come back to them. That's not a legal requirement.
Right.
And so I think maybe that's why it's not in that resolution. I didn't draft that resolution, by the way, but I think that's why. I think once it's back to planning and zoning, I think the chairman could send it back to the subcommittee. The subcommittee's met twice, but the subcommittee has not made any recommendation, any language, any drafts or anything. So I think that the chairman or a vote of the planning commission could send it back to the subcommittee.
Can somebody read the resolution?
Excuse me, is the attorney, the counsel that made this recommendation in this room tonight?
I'm right here, Judge.
No, not you. I'm talking about the attorney that made you think that this was not done correctly.
He is not here.
He is not here.
He's not here.
Yes, that's right.
But
I
think as a abundance of caution, it going this way is hard.
Members of the court, that your attorney's right here. The attorney's reading the statute, and it says these are the proposals. I mean, you can ask for a lawyer who hasn't sued you yet, but the one who's trying to keep at least my court out of trouble is me. And that's why I think it needs to be either referred or not. That's what the statute says. I will read a proposal to amend the text of any zoning regulation, which must be voted on, regardless of the nature, may with the planning commission or unit or member of the fiscal court or legislative body. There's only one of us, and that's y'all. So I told Charlie that and said, if you're gonna do it, that's what the law says.
But you're referring to text amendment you don't know the details of. I mean, it's, you know anything about it.
And that's,
Hang on.
hear that. That's the whole point. That's why I'm very hesitant to get into the specifics of whatever the text amendment is, because that's the matter for planning and zoning.
Please, I ask, hold on, thank you. I ask that you please not, please refrain. This is not going to be a public hearing. We are trying to decide this. You may, thank you, Mr. Jones.
I know.
This,
I
I apologize. I know you've got a lot to say, and I'm trying my best to keep this, meeting together. So, are there any other questions from the fiscal court to our council, before we move on to the next item on the agenda? All right,
I got one.
you got one.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
do. So Squire Tracy asked my first one. So the second one I have is how frequently, as this course of action that we're talking about here, originating from the fiscal court, you know, I've been on it 3 years. This is the first time it has been attempted this way. Has it been attempted before the fiscal court this way at any other point? Or is this the very first time?
Not in my 8 years.
I am not aware. The other ones were all addressed by representatives of fiscal court by way of staff.
And I think Robert Hewitt's on. Maybe could Robert answer that? Robert, do you have a thought on that one? Are you on here, Robert?
Yes, sir, I'm right here.
Okay. Do you recall this ever being a situation with the text amendment before?
I do not recall the court ever proposing their own text amendments. Applications for text amendments for the general public have been made available by both city and county planning departments for 2 decades. And this is the first time that this issue ever has come up. So.
Correct.
I mean, it's, you know, the Attorney General made an opinion. There's not been a Supreme Court ruling on it or anything. It's just an opinion. So,
Was this a recent, I'm just trying to understand the timing. Was this a recent opinion that's been issued by the Attorney General? I just don't know.
I was not provided a copy of the opinion, so I'm not sure.
Okay, maybe our counselor, he may know.
I'm looking at the statute, not the opinion on hand, ma'am. I'll grab it for you if you want to. This wasn't General Cameron's.
2012.
Okay, all right. So we're asking questions about the process. So,
Right.
so, just about the process. So, you know, and I have a couple of, I guess, general questions after this. So I understand, and we've talked about that a standing committee of the planning commission, I think, which is called the zoning ordinance update committee. They've had a couple of meetings on this, on some type of request in this specter previously, where the public, the applicant, Buffalo Trace, and county planning staff gave testimony and possibly provided exhibits. I'm gonna presume that all happened. So what is the next step in the planning commission's process? Is it to receive recommendations or to get a report from this zoning ordinance update committee, or is it something else?
Are you asking me, Squire?
I'm
Yes,
just
she's
tossing
a-
it to the universe.
She's asking you, Counselor.
I know the process that planning and zoning would go through in addressing this referral. It is not a referral from the fiscal court that the fiscal court is voting on, one way or the other. If the fiscal court declines it, then it goes back, I guess, to the comprehensive plan, or the planning and zoning could take it, I guess, theoretically on its own. So for that reason, I have not attempted to stay on top of what planning and zoning does in the course of their conduct until it comes before this court.
Okay, so does our planning director who was just on, does he have, could he advise in that regard?
Mr. Hitt?
Yes. So, as Mr. Jones stated earlier, the zoning update committee is not legally required to exist. They're only a subcommittee of the planning commission. Items can be referred to the planning commission, you know, at the request of the majority of the commission. However, and, you know, we'll leave that up to the chairman of the planning commission to decide. But the way the statute reads, it would go directly to the commission for a public hearing, which is the way I would advertise it and present it. Because as Mr. Sparks noted earlier, you know, there was testimony, or there was public comment at both zoning update committee meetings. And the first one was, I believe it was the first one was 5 hours long, with a standing room only crowd.
So while you're on, is there a time frame relative to the next step in the process? Is there, because we've heard a number of times that there are timing components. X has to be heard so many days after, and as the judge said just now, 90 days. So I'm just trying to understand the timing.
The 90-day rule only applies to zone map amendment requests, not text amendments.
So is there a time frame in regard to text amendments?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And can you tell me how much acreage, I guess, and this is kind of just a general ballpark, in Franklin County, how much is zoned AG and then how much is rural residential? Just so I have a frame of reference.
Percentage.
Because looking kind of at a map, it looks like it's close to between 40 to 50%, but I'm not sure. Collectively combined. And you may
Unfortunately, I'm out
have.
of the office,
Yeah, I see.
and I don't have that information available to me right now.
Do you,
Franklin County is about 135,700 acres total.
Can Ben, can you text Ben and have Ben send that to the court tomorrow?
48%?
We'll get Ben to get you that.
47.
But that's sort of after the process.
Well, I mean, it's gonna take some effort in order to extrapolate that information from the GIS database. So I'm not sure we can get it to the court tomorrow.
Okay.
If I could have it sometime early next week,
Okay.
That would be appreciated.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Wait a minute,
You're
Scott,
up.
let's make sure she's through.
I was just going
Those
to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
questions that are gonna have to be brought out through planning and zoning, that's called part of a public hearing.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the lanes that I could or couldn't ask, so I may not be allowed to ask this one, I don't know. But in reading this resolution, you know, it's got 4 whereas clauses, and then, you know, at the opening title, and then in the final therefore clause, it uses the words "to allow."
Yeah.
Spirit warehousing, so I'm just trying to make sure that by any action of the court tonight, does that predispose a decision point?
Yes,
I'm just trying to understand the wording.
that's a good question.
I think, and Rivers Court, I think that's a critical question, and I cannot emphasize this enough. This is not a final on anything by the court in any form or fashion. That is not the request. The request is for fiscal court to request those things by planning and zoning. This does not obligate anybody anything. You're all 7 gonna have to vote. Those of us those who want to testify and a plus or minus about it will have the chance to do so. But this is not in any form whatsoever an obligation of the court to approve this preliminarily at all, period. I appreciate everybody being here. I think that's great. I hope to meet them again in another one. But this does not solidify the court's intention on its zoning ordinance.
Judge, if I could address the Squire's question, since I'm the one that prepared the resolution.
Yes, sir.
I used the term or the word "to allow" as a way to keep the options open if it gets to the planning commission, because in our zoning ordinance, there are 2 ways that an activity can occur. It's either permitted by right or it's a conditional use. So by using the word allow, as opposed to permit it to occur, it leaves it open where it's either a conditional use or permitted use, even though the applicant has requested it to be a permitted use. So that's the reason behind my choice for the word allow.
Okay. Squire Blackburn, Squire Sebastian, are you finished?
Yes.
Squire Blackburn?
Yeah, Robert, so would it change too much to change allow to consider?
No, sir. That would be fine.
Okay,
Can we do that?
yep, we can do that.
Sounds like we just did.
That's a good idea.
Change the, is there a consensus to change the word, verbiage to allow to consider?
Although you've,
I'm sorry,
No,
John,
you're
I can't-
Johnson?
with this, it's not,
This is give you the chance to have your public hearing. We're not having a public hearing here tonight.
John, please,
That's correct.
well, just for the record, I object to not being allowed
okay,
to say anything,
okay,
just for the record.
okay, thank you.
Because Buffalo Trace was allowed,
Okay,
and that's supposed to
so
be it.
we're gonna change to allow to be, to consider? Okay. All right, anything else? Anything else?
I just want to say something. I've had a lot of public input from both sides of the spectrum, people in the middle. Here tonight, as I'm basing my decision, I think it's important that if somebody has an idea, that they can be able to follow a process to flesh it out to see if it passes or fails. I think that's always important. I think tonight, we're not fleshing out whether it's gonna pass or fail. We're just making sure that it follows the proper process. And I know that in that process, the people that are for and against will show up, and hopefully it'll work the way the system's supposed to work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Squire Blackburn, very much.
Squire Booth?
I want to say that the fiscal court was elected to represent the citizens in their district. And the citizens in my district are very much against this change in the zoning for even as a conditional use. So we have an obligation as the legislative body of this county. It's a tremendous obligation to represent our citizens. So I want to point that out.
We will be allowed to vote, we were gonna have a voting on
Session.
whether to send this on or not, and may even take it a step further. And
Okay.
that's part of the process.
And they'll give people a chance to be heard.
Squire Tracy?
Thank you. Rick, I would suppose any and all communication, whether for and or against, was shared with the commission. Will that information have to be, if this goes forward, that information will have to be reshared per se, or resent, and then distributed again?
What information?
Well, they've had 2 meetings.
Where I guess I've been
Yeah.
mostly concerned about piecemealing information to go to the commission one way or the other. I know that any written communication that I have received have been addressed to the commission now. I know there will be an opportunity if the court says, yeah, do this, for people to show up and express their opinions one way or the other. But in the event that you have those, I would ask the court to consider at least forwarding them to Mr. Hewitt, if not to planning and zoning, to take that into full consideration. That's what I plan on doing if I receive anything outside of the formal testimony framework.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good question.
Good, well,
Yes, sir, that's a good question, Squire Tracy, thank you.
Judge Wells, if I may,
You may.
any outside communication to the planning commission prior to the hearing is ex parte communication and is not allowed. Only items and information submitted at the hearing and accepted into the record will be forwarded to the fiscal court.
Okay. And what is the process for that? Just, and I'm sure everybody that's sitting in here probably already knows that process, but just to make sure that the public hears how that process works, Robert, would you please go over that one more time?
The best way to ensure that information gets entered into the record is to appear at the hearing so that they are able to enter their information or documentation into the record and counsel be given the opportunity to cross-examine or the planning commission ask questions of the individual submitting information. That's the best way to do it. Otherwise, if documentation is either mailed to the commission or emailed to me, that the planning commission does not have to accept that into the record. And that's been stated many times by Mr. Logan, counsel for the planning commission.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, all right.
So Robert, just one more time, those who want to present their information to show up for those public hearings, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Squire Muller.
Thank you, Judge. I think everyone here cares a lot about our community, and Squire Booth is right. We are the body that has to make tough decisions and things like that. Buffalo Trace is huge in our community. I don't think anybody wants to say anything bad about them or things like that. I think the question that's in front of us is, do we move them in different parts of the community? And our community is a lot different, with the Elkhorn Creek, the river, and things like that. This is one of the biggest decisions, will be in front of us. I think everybody wants to see our community grow. I sure do. We just want to make sure it grows in the right fashion. I have some questions. I think that every magistrate here has asked questions that it doesn't seem like we have answers to. I did some research today. There's legislation right now to remove the barrel tax. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
It's in front of us. David Osborne is quoted as saying, the General Assembly is committed to a tax reform this session. So, I don't know. There's some.
There was a big fight this legislative session over that.
Well, yeah,
especially from.
And I don't think it's going away. Yeah.
I don't know why it's going away. That they didn't do it, but there's talk about it.
So I don't know where we go from here. It just seems like the P&Z thing's been very confusing. As Squire Sebastian said, we've never done this before. I'm not an attorney. So it's interesting that it's sitting here in front of us, and I appreciate them wanting to do it right, but even the what was brought to the, I guess, Damel Cameron was just a suggestion. It wasn't an actual, this is how you must do it. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm looking at this as a work session between my fellow colleagues, just trying to figure it out because I don't know.
Well, and part of that is we don't know, and the other part of what we don't know is sending it back to the zoning update committee, if that be the case, or at least to the planning commission, and let them work through it. And most importantly, all of you out there are here because you feel passionate about this in one form or fashion, and that's great. And you should be allowed to speak when it is the proper time, and this is not the time, but the Planning and Zoning Commission is when you're going to be hearing you'll be giving testimony and hearing testimony, and that is with a public hearing, and that's when you should speak, and you should be heard. And I would expect that most of you that are out there, you'll be there, and you'll be there to speak loudly, and that's great. That's what we should have happen in our community, speak up. This is only to get it to that point so you can have a public hearing. It's not to pass it, it's not to fail it, it's only to send it on to what's supposed to be the proper process. Squire Sebastian.
I do have a question. So if it's already before this one standing committee of the planning commission, isn't it already before that body? And if
Well,
they've
it-
had to, I'm just asking, I'm trying to make sure
That's what
because
I'm
we've all
thinking.
talked about a
Has the whole
certificate.
body seen
So,
it?
which is why I asked the
Same
question,
thing.
what is the next step in the process?
Right,
Do
I
they
think-
prepare a recommendation, that standing committee? Do they prepare a report?
Yep.
Do they send that on to the planning commission? Because
Good
they've
question.
had testimony, they've received documents, it's already in their pipeline. So that's what has me confused.
Right.
As I said earlier, we've handled text amendments here. We handled one not long ago.
What was that?
The one on the residential recovery facilities, which is why I asked if it should be voided, because we handled it in a whole other matter. We've had two recently. So again, I go back to that, but I'm not sure I'm understanding why we're going, why this process is in front of us if it's already in front of a standing committee of the body awaiting the next step, which is either a recommendation, a report, or something else. So I'm sorry I'm asking that, but I'm just trying to make
Let's
sure
ask
I.
Robert came on to answer that.
Okay,
question.
that's great. I'm just trying to make sure I understand, because we're all talking about we
It's a good
don't understand
question.
process.
It's a good question. Robert Hewitt?
So
That is a
the
good
county's application for a text amendment was properly filed with attachments, and staff forwarded it directly to the zoning update committee. It has not appeared before the planning commission. The zoning update committee, along with the other subcommittees, have standing calendars. And if items are filed with the planning offices, they're forwarded to the zoning update committee prior to ever going to the planning commission. That's just been the practice of that body for decades. Like I said before, city and county have always had applications for the general public to propose amendments to the regulations. You know, for instance, I mean, envision Franklin County, you know, back in the day, they petitioned staff to support a conservation subdivision regulation that we forwarded on, and actually the county received an award for it, and the plaque is in the planning office. So if the court's considering trying to void all ordinances that were approved by application of a resident, a body, or otherwise, then that's going to change how things are done. But otherwise,
No, that's
Then
not.
we can plan
yeah,
commission
that's
by
not-
application.
Yeah, Robert, the issue is not voiding it. The issue is that there has been a presentation twice to the zoning update committee concerning this issue, this text amendment. So does the meat of the question is this, and what everybody is gonna wanna know, and I think everybody's asking tonight. Is everything null and void that has been presented to this point to the zoning update committee? And did they start again? Or do you continue those meetings as if this is a continuation of the meeting before that and the meeting before that? Do you, and maybe, I think Rick is trying to say something, and I'm not sure. But this is a legal question that everybody in this room wants to know, is trying to figure out, and hasn't got an answer to.
well, Judge, if I could, nothing presented to the zoning update committee is being voided. Okay?
Okay.
Those meetings occurred, they were publicly advertised meetings. Even though there's not a recording secretary for those meetings, they did occur and there was participation.
So everything that was said will be on the record, is on the record then. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Is everything that was said during those meetings and all documents presented, are they still on the record as being presented?
They're only on the record to the extent that it was a hybrid meeting, which included the virtual option. Otherwise, these subcommittees do not have recording secretaries present at their meetings. So the Attorney General's opinion states that that text amendments, have to go to the Planning Commission before they go to the Fiscal Court. So an application, for the text amendment can be now sent directly to the planning commission if the fiscal court chooses to do so. If not, then it dies. But at the zoning update committee, they met twice for many, many hours. In my opinion, it stalled in committee, and it ought to be forwarded on to the commission so that a public hearing can occur, evidence can be entered into the record, testimony can be given, and cross-examination occur. Everyone wants their day in court and they want to be heard. And getting it to the planning commission will settle this issue and get it to the fiscal court for final determination. And so that's why I prepared the resolution.
But that was my question. So it's been heard by this standing committee of the planning commission. What is the next step of that subcommittee, or standing committee, subcommittee, whichever is the appropriate terminology? Do they make a recommendation to the planning commission? Do they issue a report that says, we've heard all this and here's what we have? Here you go, planning commission.
They do not have to
it's two paths.
May not even make it to the planning
I don't
commission.
know. That's why I'm asking this.
That's why I said it's
I've
stalled
asked
in
it
committee.
like 4 times now.
They do not have to make a recommendation. In my discussion with the chairman of the zoning update committee, he has recommended to the committee that it just be forwarded on to the planning commission for full consideration. Now, I haven't gotten any further direction or feedback from him as to what the rest of the committee said. But they don't have to make a recommendation. They can just say, forward it on. Or they could make a recommendation for, against, modified. They have a lot of options available to them, but they don't prepare a formal report. The staff prepares the reports to summarize what occurred in the committee meeting, and then that's forwarded to the planning commission in full. Hope that answers your question.
It's like our treasurer search. We're not recommending anybody to the fiscal court. We're bringing the entire final list to the fiscal court.
But the way I understood it, the standing committees heard testimony from,
Right,
they
but-
received documents, et cetera. And it was just stated
But
that
without
this
this,
is going on to, so I don't understand.
but
why
without
we're
us doing
it's
this,
like a
the whole
two-minute statement.
commission may not have a public hearing on it. This,
I
I
know.
think, will have,
I'm just
let
trying to
them
understand.
Well, according to
hearing so everyone gets heard.
the planning commission's legal counsel stated that the committee does not have to accept public comment. That was granted by a majority of the committee. The committee did not have to do that. It's just a working group. It's just like the road committee getting together to discuss some upcoming projects. You don't have to accept comment, but if someone's there, I'm sure you'd like to hear from them. And that's what the zoning update committee did. So their decisions or their recommendations are non-binding and is a courtesy to both staff and the public to hash out these issues so that planning commission public hearings don't last 6, 7, 8 hours. So they boil it down to where the committee is comfortable, and then the planning commission is oftentimes very comfortable with the work that the committee has done.
Okay.
I got one more question. Mr. Hewitt, if this does go through tonight with our recommendation for them to hear it, what would your recommendation be to the planning commission? Would it be for them to put it back in committee and take up where they left off, or would it be to just go to the full commission?
Well, I would leave that as the discretion of the majority of the planning commission. And so the chairman of the zoning update committee is also the chairman of the planning commission. And since, he participated in both meetings, I would leave it to their discretion. Mr. Jones's proposed language for the text amendment is very clear. I think it was condensed into just one page. So based on how much time the committee spent, they really didn't seem to get anywhere with it. So I'm not sure if he'll send it back to the committee or go ahead and have the hearing. I would assume, right? Never mind. I don't want to assume anything. So.
Thank you, Robert.
Members of the court, I'd just like to remind you, KRS chapter 100.211 subsection 3 says, and I quote, that the planning commission shall hold at least one public hearing after notices required by chapter 242. I think that is the statutory next step, although I have not spoken with Mr. Logan about what the functional next step is, but that is what the law requires.
So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna read this item again. Authorization to approve a resolution requesting the Frankfurt Franklin County Planning Commission conduct a hearing to amend the Franklin County Code of Ordinances to consider spirit warehousing in the rural residential and agricultural zoning district. I changed the word from to allow to consider. That is the change that the court has asked. Everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is authorization to renew lease agreement with Buffalo Trace Properties LLC for livestock compost facility from September 17th, 2022 to September 16th, 2023. Brittany?
Good evening, Court. This is a renewal lease. We do this every year since the compost pad became a county facility. This lease will be for 1 year. There are no changes this year. So it's really just asking approval for us to sign it.
Any questions on that? The next item, you have a question?
Well, Brittany, are we still reporting our findings?
Like when we do testing?
Yes.
There hasn't really been any water testing specifically related from sent in for the pad exactly. The road department does test Penitentiary Branch for their own reporting. So it kind of piggybacks off that. And then we do soil sampling of the compost itself at least once a year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Brittany. Thank you, and we are very proud of the compost facility. It has done a fantastic job. And the next item is authorization to award bids. Stephen is here. Stephen, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bids to award tonight.
Yes. Good evening, Court. We have received the bids for the aggregate, concrete, blacktop, and coke pipe. These are the bids that we would like to go with. These were also the lowest bids. For the aggregates, Harriet Stone, there was an increase of $2.25 a ton on the rock. And for the concrete, there's also Harriet Stone and concrete. It went up $14 a yard from last year.
What is it right now?
I think it's around 115, somewhere in that area, I think.
Is that because of gasoline mostly?
I guess, and materials.
And materials.
Yes, and materials. And for the blacktop, HG Mays, it went up approximately $6 a ton, which I thought was great, you know, considering petroleum and everything. So that was a pretty low increase. So that was pretty good. And for the culvert pipe is through Core and Main. The pipe went up approximately $5 to $6 a foot for the culvert pipe. You know, because that is a petroleum-based product.
Well, I'm glad you answered this because you knew I was gonna ask. How much it went up, something? Man, that's a bunch per foot.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for Stephen? All right, thank you, Stephen. Next item is authorization to approve appointments. The first one is the Franklin County Tourist Convention Commission reappointment recommendations by the Tourist Committee as Mark Stone served since 2010. The next one is Craig Potts, who served 2 terms on the Tourist Commission. The next one is the Paul Sawyer Library Board, 1 of 2 recommended by Commissioner Terry Manuel of Library and Archives. That's Bob Kellerman through June 30th, 2025, and he will be filling the resignation from Cheryl Sandiford, who obviously has resigned. So those are appointments to the Tourist and Convention Commission. reappointments and one to the Paul Sawyer Library Board. The next item on the agenda is first reading of amendment number 5 to ordinance number 6, 2021, relating to the budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022. Susan.
Yes, thank you, Court. I've been given an advance warning about the fire fund that we're going to need some additional money. And this will help correct a lot of line items that are that we need to make budget adjustments for, budget transfers for. We do have additional insurance premium tax receipts, which are assigned as a revenue source for the fire fund. And so we can amend those in and then have this contingency for transfers. And then next court will have our year-end budget transfers. And I did provide an explanation for the reasoning for those needs. And I have had extensive conversations with our fire chief. And this is pretty much these items were pretty much circumstances beyond his control, certainly, with the COVID impact on our payroll and unforeseen mechanical issues. The other item on the transient room tax fund, we did, as I said before, make an amendment earlier in the year for this because we had, again, a COVID prediction. We have made recovery and we are taking in more, and this is a completely pass-through funding. Fiscal Court doesn't retain any of it. We are the tax collector on behalf of tourism and the Fine Arts Center. So at the time that the amendment was made, we did have some, it was at the due date, but we have had some new participants with the short-term rentals who have been entering into compliance, and with those need to be passed on to the agency. So I'm incorporating those as well in this fiscal year.
Question for Susan? Question for Susan? All right, Squire Booth?
Treasurer, you say that the short-term rentals are being compliant with the law now. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, well, yes, they are becoming aware of their responsibility to participate in this tax. Many of them, maybe they're new, they're not part of VRBO. They may be doing it on their own, and VRBO does not presently transmit taxes to local jurisdictions unless you're really big. So our own tourism agency has been trying to get that information out to them, that they are also responsible for the local room tax at their level as well as the hotels.
Okay, that's great news.
Okay, any payment of claims? Any questions on the payment of claims? Susan?
Oh, I have a
Squire
question
Sebastian.
on tab 9. Thank you, Judge. Susan, I was just looking through the expense reports and I see that, certainly I know there are encumbrances through the remainder of the year, but there are also unencumbered balances that remain in some accounts. Just choose one here. The landfill and litter disposal, that's on page 4 of 12. The litter grant program, where the budget for that was 36.5 and change. We still have, 8,600 that's unexpended and unencumbered. So are we to return that?
Maybe Brittany should.
Well, I just presumed, I wasn't sure if the treasurer had to answer that one or.
I don't know. I do not know the complete status of that grant program. Many of these grants all come at the beginning of the fiscal year. And as in fact, we've already received the money for next fiscal year. We received it in this fiscal year. So they make it up based on estimates of budgetary need. Some of them have to be returned, some of them don't. So as far as off the top of my head, these expenditures, where they match up, and if it's any grant that has to be returned, I don't know. And I don't recall if that one particular one was calendar year or fiscal year?
The
At this
litter,
point?
the litter grant is calendar year.
Okay,
Okay, great,
okay, so that accounts for the difference there.
great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, the next thing is other business, that we have several items, and you all may have some too. Robert Hewitt, you have 2 items that you want to talk to the court about. Thanks, Robert. There he is. Robert, the planner position.
Yeah, so our part-time planner sold his house and has moved, excuse me, I'm sorry. And so we now have a vacant position there. I'd like to re-advertise for it, but I would like the opportunity to once again have a discussion about going to a full-time status as opposed to part-time.
What type of, how much, what effect would that be on the budget, Robert?
Well, I'm sure it would definitely increase it by how
Well, I
much.
know, but you know what was the salary of the part-time planner, Robert?
Well, unfortunately, since I'm not in the office, I don't have that information with me, and I apologize. Maybe Betty Jo could help out.
I believe it's $21 an hour.
21 an hour, okay. And you're asking for that to be a full-time position?
Yes, sir.
Which would be, Betty, do you have an idea how much that would be? If it at $21 an hour?
At $21 an hour, I'll have to look at the comp scale on to make sure it would be 41,000 a year rounding.
Okay.
And I believe there's already 20 in there, so I'm assuming it'd be an extra $20,000 around about would be added to the budget.
Okay. All right.
So during his short tenure, he was extremely helpful with the county clerk and the new election maps and such. We do have a reinforcement coming up as well that will require my staff to do mapping. Our activity is still up. We're high still, and there's more projects in the works. I still feel a need for that position, and I'm requesting it to go full-time if the court so chooses.
Okay. I know that we were very lucky to get Mr. Walker. He was an outstanding employee. I hated to see him leave, but it wasn't easy to find a part-time person for that job.
No, sir. No. Mr. Walker was a last-minute application that we received, thankfully. He was, wonderful employee, great experience, fit in well, and hate to see him go, but it did show how the need is in the department for that extra set of hands. That position, as I told or mentioned to court before, signed off on business licenses, zoning permits, simple building permits, updated our GIS mapping for our stormwater infrastructure that's required by the Division of Water, assisted the county clerk with all the election mapping. It was a blessing to have someone else there because Ben and I are extremely busy, and with either field work or writing technical reports or meeting with the public, the position was there to help answer calls, address simple questions, and I don't have control of what comes through the front door, but over the last couple of years, it's been coming fast.
Okay, anybody? Squire
Hey, Robert, thank you for being on. Just curious, when you put out the advertising for the last temporary part-time position, how many applications did you receive?
0.
Okay.
Isn't that right, Betty Jo? And then we advertised it a second time?
You got one.
Yes, that's correct. We just received that one at the last minute, actually.
Right. So we advertised it honest, we spent thousands of dollars on advertisements. And then at the very last minute, we had one application.
Did receive applications from people who were confused on the ad and thought it was event planning.
Correct. Yeah, they thought it was an event planner. Yes, not a land use planner.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. Robert, the second item.
Clerk, help me. What was the second item? I don't have the agenda with me. I'm sorry.
It is your change order that you asked to be placed under other business.
ESG.
Yes. So this change order is the residual funds of the owner's contingency. It's in the $4,000 range, 4,700 or something like that. I would request that this be added to the agenda for the court to accept this change order to reduce the overall amount of the project, and then so we can close the project out by June 30th. The treasurer and I would be very grateful if the court would agree to this deduct change order so we can close things out.
That would be good.
Okay, any questions on that? All right, thank you, Robert. The next item on the agenda is Timber, something about dates for treasurer interviews.
Yes, so I had a packet placed in each of your seats or on the table for you all that have the applications for the treasurer. That they have been narrowed down to those individuals. We need to set up interview dates for them, and it will be in-person only interviews. The judge is not wanting to do any type of hybrid or video.
The committee said that, wasn't the judge. The committee.
Okay, the committee. And also need, also need your questions that you would like to ask during the interviews. And what I would like to do is take each of your questions, compile them all on a list so that everyone is provided that list.
That you can make notes as these questions are asked. Lambert has given me 8 questions.
Wow.
So yeah, it's an A+ today. So if you will, maybe
you want to look at your calendars. I
You
had,
said 2 or 3, yeah.
yeah, I appreciate that. When the panel met, they picked out 3 dates that worked for their schedule, which may necessarily not work for your schedules. So if you all could.
So the interviews require all magistrates and the judge.
Yes.
They do not require all magistrates. However, if you are here for one, you need to be here for all.
Or don't be here at all. So you don't have to come, but if you can't pick and choose.
All right, and I will make those interviews as a special called meeting. And we'll call it to order, immediately go into closed session. Hold the interviews, we will come out and then adjourn from there.
Not all on the same day.
We were
3
thinking
days,
we were thinking splitting them up 2 days, but it's your all's preference, what you all can work into your schedule.
Okay.
And I do have dates that do not work on here that we could work through.
While you're looking for that, I'm not gonna ask 8 questions, but I figured my question would be repeated, so I can pick from those to pick out my favorite 2.
Right, and I don't mind to go ahead and send these questions out to you all and get them typed up so that you kind of have an idea of what he's got and maybe y'all want to use some of his. But we do have July 1st through 10th does not work.
What does work? I thought we were doing 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Well, those are the dates I offer, but I also was going to tell them what didn't work so that they could choose from there.
Okay.
Also July 15th and 18th doesn't work very well. So you all, it's your call.
And
27th through 29th is okay with me.
of June, that's June.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Yeah.
The 27th would be evening, later in the day, like 4 o'clock to we're counting on an hour
4
of
to
each.
7, so.
An hour each.
Yeah, an
and
hour
then-
each.
Then 30 minutes between or so. or
Yeah.
15, so.
Yep. This is a arduous task, and it's an important,
And
it's an extremely important decision for us.
we are gonna, I'm
Oh, I
afraid,
know.
run out of time to have someone spend as much time as possible with Susan, because our last day is September 30th. And she will probably be
Oh.
taking some vacation days between now and then as well.
Yes, I know she needs to train the person, and I can't. That position is so important.
It's very important. So what say you on dates?
Well, I just said no.
Okay, Squire Muller,
27, 28 is the only time I'm gone.
okay,
I'm in college with my kids,
okay,
so
27, I'm in as well.
okay.
I'm not trying to be difficult.
Now we
but,
go
yeah.
to the middle of.
Well,
July's
we're,
gonna
we've
put
got,
us way up in July.
yeah, because the 1st through the 10th is out.
Ooh.
Mhm.
And 15th and 18th is that, right?
If we may be able to work around that, that's Betty Jo's days. I mean, we feel like she should be here, but if,
There's 6 applications in here, right?
yes.
Yeah, 11th and 12th works for me.
Sherry's out, I think. 11th and 12th.
She's out till the 10th. So July 11th and 12th.
No pressure,
No,
Sherry.
I never feel it. Or you'll never know.
July 11th and 12th.
We're in July now, right?
I'm good, 11 and 12.
I have something on the 12th, I'll move it
Okay,
to make
so,
myself available.
so 11th and 12th, that's a Monday and Tuesday, that.
Yep.
Everybody work that? So we'll do
Okay.
3 on one day and 3 on the other?
Well,
There's
so
a safety committee meeting on the 12th.
we can cancel that, but here's another caveat, is it's vacation time. So when Betty Jo contacts these applicants, we need to try to work around their schedule. If,
Oh.
you know, if they, and it's also a busy time for treasurers. So if they can't come in the daytime, then we can schedule in the evening. So is everybody clear all day and all evening, the 11th and 12th?
Yeah, the thing is some of these applicants potentially could have financial jobs where they are in the process of closing things out, and they have closed out 30 days past the state fiscal year.
They really want a job, they'll figure out how to get here.
So
Just saying.
Okay, so we're clear. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
11th and
Okay.
12th,
Thank you. That's it.
27th, 28th, 29th.
So get me your questions too, and you
That's the
can
11th
text
through the
them to
12th.
me, call me, email me, whatever's easiest.
Okay, I guess the 27th, 28th, and 29th are probably out.
They're out.
All the,
They're out.
okay.
The next, is there any other business?
I have
Okay.
a couple of items of other business. Thank you, Judge. And Judge, you may know this, and our treasurer may know this. Did Franklin County receive a response from DLG on the 6535 request? I think maybe that the judge and our treasurer had discussed with us that they were gonna go ahead and send to them.
I did not send it. I did not
Did
send
not,
it.
it did not.
I have
get-
not sent it. I just wanted to basically lay the groundwork for that in conjunction with the budget. We'll be entering into the new budget now. And so the opportunity for that and as needed basis, we can consider it and have that available as an opportunity.
Okay, I just thought I'd call like.
Is this for a fiscal year or a calendar year?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year, okay.
Okay, the second question I have is, did Franklin County receive a response from the Farmville Water District Board regarding my request to apply that $100,000 ARPA money that was set aside for all the water districts, so that we could enact the $3 water loss surcharge so that it meets the revenue threshold set by PSC sooner rather than later, and that the $3 surcharge can be removed from the customer bills quicker?
I don't know that answer.
We just haven't heard back from
The
them.
chairman of the board hadn't been in,
He's in the hospital.
and he's in the hospital. The other 2 guys are doing all they can to keep their head above water. So I think they do have, and Northcutt, are you on? I do believe they have projects for the $100,000. And Northcutt,
Yes, sir, I'm on.
has Farmdale Water gone through the process to get their $100,000?
I do not believe they've submitted a draw request yet. I know that they have a project that's been approved through the SLSRF portal to be used for that purpose, but I don't believe they've submitted any draw request on that yet.
I have talked with them. I talked with them about it. It is placed on by the Public Service Commission,
Through a request by Farmville Water.
but Public Service Commission will not let them take it off at this point in time. We have not been able to say to them, now we're gonna give you $100,000, that please take it off, because when the request was made that they needed about $187,000 worth of work to repair the lines, to stop the leaks, that doesn't equate, so.
So we just haven't heard back. So
I have not heard a
we're
thing.
waiting
I have
still
not,
to hear back.
I have not heard.
And we don't have any idea when we may hear
And
back.
you know, you're welcome to contact them. That's your district. If you want to talk with them, ask them that.
Okay. The next question I had, the last meeting we talked about, did Franklin County hear back from the Farmville Water District on why the administrative offices have been closed to the public, while all the other local water district administrative offices have been open since 2021?
And I got an email about that they were going to open them up.
Yeah, they have opened.
They have?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I can get back with those constituents. As I said last time, I've had several constituents ask about that. And then, just want to say thanks to members of Franklin County government, for sponsoring that cruise in at Lakeview Park on June 12th. It was a free family oriented event, and proceeds were split between the VFW Post and American Legion. And so any opportunity to support veterans, happy that everybody stepped up to help out and make sure that happened. And I know it was a hot day, so appreciate that very much. And just make sure you put the next ones on your calendar for July 24th and August 14th. And those will be more at the Carter House under the shade rather than the paddock area where we had to have
Drive-in type thing?
just be cruising.
Well, let's do even one more important. I'm not sure it's not important, but
Right.
July the 9th is first responders and military families appreciation day at the park. And it's been sponsored by both the city and the county and the Kentucky National Guard. And so I encourage everyone to come out and support our first responder families and support our military families as well. And also Juneteenth is this weekend. Juneteenth, there is something at Lakeview Park on both Friday evening as well as Saturday during the day. So good programs that are going on at Lakeview Park.
Is that on the website?
Yes.
Oh, good, okay.
Yes. Okay. Constitutional officers, seeing none. Department heads, anybody else? All right, it is 7:16. We're gonna call it 7:15. It's 7:20. We'll come back in. We'll have 5 minutes of recess to go to the restroom, and we'll come back into the voting session in 5 minutes at around 7:20. We are recessed for 5 minutes.
Here, or we're gonna do it in the normal?
We're gonna do it
voting?
here.
Okay. Hey. All right. Okay, we've got everybody here. We've got everybody here. Before we get started. Back in session. This is the Franklin County Fiscal Court regular meeting of June 16th, 2022. And clerk, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Here.
Squire Blackburn,
Present.
Squire Muller,
Present.
Squire Tracy,
Here.
Squire Booth,
Here.
Squire Moore,
Here.
Judge Wells.
Here. The next item on the agenda is authorization for approval of minutes from a regular meeting of June 1st, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a contract with the Franklin County Health Department for providing preventative services to county employees from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a resolution requesting the Frankfurt Franklin County Planning Commission conduct a hearing to amend the Franklin County Code of Ordinances to consider spirit warehousing in the rural residential and agricultural zoning districts.
So moved.
Second. Call roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Okay, so try to think about that, and as someone said before, this is unusual for this course of action to come before us, and the process is already afoot. It's been in a forum that's had hearings, it's received testimony from the public, it's received testimony from the applicant, staff had staff input, and remains under consideration. So, to me, it's a little bit perplexing why this issue through this resolution is now before two bodies. So I understand the zoning ordinance update committee has had multiple meetings, has more information. Again, heard testimony from a variety of people, which is a good thing to hear that testimony and have that fully fleshed out. But I'm not sure how appropriate it is to introduce another party in an ongoing process and the other party have less information than the one that's already involved and working on it now. So I sound confounded, and I am. I'm confounded. And so that, because I'm confounded, that's going to color my vote. And so I'm going to vote no just because I'm confounded by the entire process at this point.
Squire Blackburn,
Well, this is a complicated, the way it's come about and come to us. And every text amendment for the last 2 decades, as Mr. Hewitt said, has been applied for usually by the applicant or whoever. Also, I want to say that this is one of the biggest issues that's come through planning and zoning in a long time. And the impact or perceived impact it's going to have on our community is huge, one way or the other. And my thing is, I think the process needs to be followed, whether it's something everybody's for or whether it's something everybody's against. I do have reservations on a lot of the things implied in this, but I do think it should follow the process and give a fair shake, just like any other thing. And I think the public will have its say, and it will come before us either way at the full body after it goes through the planning commission's full body. So I vote to let it go through the process. I vote yes.
Squire Muller,
So, first I want to thank everybody. It's been a great court evening. I want to thank Buffalo Trace because they're a great community partner. Kind of like Squire Sebastian, there's a lot of things that weren't answered tonight. I mean, everybody had questions that weren't answered. There's a lot of speculations, why we're doing it this way, things like that. You know, one thing Franklin County does have is an interesting landscape, you know, with the creek and the river and things like that. I do think Franklin County wants to embrace Buffalo Trace. But I think the discussion needs to be had, how that's done and where that's done and things like that. What I don't like is that our community is always, it seems like they're always disputing with our planning and zoning. You know, it's time that we evaluate all of our processes and what we can do to help our community, our industry, and our developers. I personally think that since this started with the planning update committee, they started the process. I think it should go back to them. I don't think it should go to the full zoning committee. One thing I'm not going to do is place a vote for political reasons. Because I'm unsure about what the process we should be using. You know, it's just speculations of what some people say. I have to go with my gut, and I'm a no.
Squire Tracy.
As District 4 Magistrate and the magistrate who represents the people of the district and the property in question, I've had a lot of conversations and I've taken a lot of calls from both sides of the issue. Some lifelong residents of Peaks Mill have contacted me in favor of the text amendment, some others against. Like others, I've got concerns over both RR and AG being considered, concerns over the road, concerns over the traffic, the entrance and exit points to the property in question. No one wants to address black mold. It needs to be addressed. What happens if and when the bourbon craze is over? Is there going to be requirements in place to ensure that the farmland be turned back into its natural setting? And or will they just end up as rundown bourbon warehouses? I'm very concerned about preserving and protecting one of our community's most natural, valuable assets, Elkhorn Creek. I also realize that we have got to come together and come up with a plan that works for everyone in regards to recruiting new business and encouraging our existing businesses to invest, grow, and be successful in our community. But again, we have to preserve and protect our most valuable natural resources along the way. I'm truly torn on this. I get it. I appreciate everyone involved. I appreciate everything that Buffalo Trace does for our community. Their representative, I know he's worked hard on this. Everyone that's came out and been passionate against it. Again, I don't think anyone is against Buffalo Trace. I think our community understands in order for us to be successful, they have to be successful. But as the person that represents District 4 and the people of District 4, right now I have to vote no.
Squire Booth,
No.
Squire Moore,
I think that, to me, a no vote on this is saying I don't want people to have another say about this. So I'm a definite advocate of people having their say, so I'm a yes.
Judge Wells.
First of all, I want to thank the people that are here tonight. You've been passionate in whatever side you're on, and that is, actually, these type of conversations are good for our community. They help us form who we are, where we're going to be, and thanks for being here tonight. And I apologize, but you can see where this was going and what the reason we wanted to go the route that we did go. With that, I think from what is being said and all of the angles that have been talked about, especially the confusion. There's so much confusion. There's so much lack of knowledge of where to go and what the next step is. But to me, the logical process is to take it further and let it to the Planning Commission. At least at that point, at the very least at that point, people that are here tonight, people that live in the Peaksville community, people that are passionate on either side would have an opportunity to speak. When people get to speak, they get to, it helps formulate, and actually, as we've seen in several situations, when people come and talk with us, we get a better understanding of it. And I think that would help the confusion that is out there, give us a clearer direction. And because of that, not saying that I'm for, not saying that I'm against, I'm saying that I am for you as Franklin Countyans to have an opportunity to speak. I vote yes, that I think it's in the best interest to send it on. But the votes are 4-3, and so it will not be sent on. So with that being said, let's go to the next item on the agenda, and that's authorization to renew a lease agreement with Buffalo Trace Properties, LLC, for livestock compost facility from September 17th, 2022 to September 16th, 2023. Thank you all for being here tonight.
So moved.
There's a motion by Squire Tracy. Is there a second? Squire Muller, I'm sorry, I was going to say. Second by Squire Moore. Discussion, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller,
I want to thank them for having this partnership with Franklin County. Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to award a bid for various sizes of aggregates to the lowest bidder here in concrete and stone.
So moved.
We do them all one at a time.
Second.
All right, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
I have to abstain.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore, Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is authorization to award bid for Class 1 bituminous surface to the sole bidder, H.G. Mays Corporation.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
I think out of all of these, different materials, that one is probably affected the most by fuel.
Yeah.
And, I'm pleasantly surprised and pleased that their bid came in where it did. I mean, yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to award bid for Class A concrete to the sole bidder, Harrod Concrete and Stone.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Abstain.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Abstain.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to award bid for N12 polyethylene pipe and fittings to the lowest bidder, Core and Main.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
That one jumped a lot and it hurts, but it's the good bid, so I mean, yes.
They jumped overnight.
Yeah.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a reappointment of Bob Stone to the Franklin County Tourist and Convention Commission Hotel Motel position for a term ending June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve reappointment of Craig Potts to the Franklin County Tourist and Convention Commission Hotel Motel position for a term ending June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. The next item is authorization to approve appointment of Robert Kellerman to the Paul Sawyer Library Board, replacing Cheryl Sandifer, who resigned for a term ending June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Thanks to Ms. Sandifer for serving on the board, and thank you for Mr. Kellerman for stepping up, and I vote yes. The next item on the agenda is first reading of amendment number 5 to ordinance number 6, 2021, relating to budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022. Second reading and vote will be on the June 30th meeting. The next item is authorization to receive the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is payment of claims. Is there a motion to deny any payment of any claims? All right, seeing none, let the record reflect claims are ordered to be paid. The next item is authorization to amend the agenda to add a change order.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Any change order that lowers our expenditures,
It's amazing, isn't it?
is a great thing, and, I thank Mr. Hewitt for being on top of that. Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes, next item is authorization to approve change order number 3 relating to the guaranteed energy savings performance contract for various county buildings.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Booth,
A big yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Before we adjourn, I want to remind everybody, Juneteenth is this weekend.
Yeah.
Lakeview Park on Friday
Yes.
evening is a race. I expect Squire Moore to lead the race and run as fast as he can. It's only 18 miles, Squire, you can do it.
They've shortened it due to the heat. It's
They-
1.6 now.
I might even
Oh,
think
one
about it.
point
It's
six.
1.6,
I
yeah.
might think about it.
Seriously.
I might think about it.
1.6.
Consider.
I need your yes or no.
It's, hang on. Also on Saturday at 10 in the morning, there'll be a scavenger hunt and also some awards given, and the governor will be there at around 10:30 on Saturday. Sunday, Saturday evening, there will be a forum and a movie at the Grand Theater. On Sunday, there are some activities behind the Capitol, and on Monday, there are some activities as well. So Juneteenth. With that being said, we are adjourned. Thanks. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Well,
Yeah, you guys have a hard job.
No, it wasn't.